Hello, everyone, and welcome to BrowserStack Talks, conversations that turn testing pain into playbooks. I'm your host, David, and on this episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by Simon Pryor, a seasoned expert in software development and testing, known for his insights in effective quality strategies and continuous improvements. But that's what I think of Simon. Let's let Simon introduce himself.
Hi everyone, I'm Simon. I'm currently the head of quality engineering at GoodNotes. I'm also a co-host and co-organizer of Testing Peers, of which we're a podcast and also a conference organization now, and an overall testing community. I've been in the testing industry for 15 years now. And I'm really passionate about evolving testing and QA into quality engineering and continuous testing processes. Looking forward to talking to you more, David.
Awesome. Your career, when I was reading up about it, kind of sounds a lot like mine. You've done everything and tried to be everything and learn along the way, which I think is amazing. And I do encourage people to always think about their careers being more than a tester, more than a developer, right? Because it's, at the end of the day, we always say it's quality is everyone's job, right? And yeah. I think it's important that we think that. So your career spanned these significant shifts in the software development landscape. We've seen movements from Agile to DevOps. From your perspective, how has the role of quality and testing evolved with these paradigms? And what does quality truly mean in today's continuous delivery environment?
I honestly think that quality has always been a real struggle for a lot of development teams, for a lot of organizations, because there's never been a clear picture of where it fits, what it means, what it looks like. In I say the old days, there's still companies that run waterfall type processes now where QA are only engaged at the end. But the majority of companies 10, 15 years ago were still running that kind of a process. There was the assumption that quality only got thought about when the testers got involved, when the QAs got involved, that quality was all down to that team to prove that there was quality in the product. As the Agile mindset came in, quality became a responsibility of the whole team, but there was still that shift between automated testing, manual testing, who does what. We still need testers in the team because they need to do the testing. Unit testing, oh no, that's not dev's responsibility, it's down to the QAs. There was a lot of challenge on where quality fit and what it looks like. You then evolve even further into the DevOps world, and you've got the continuous delivery loops. Testing needs to be embedded in every step of the way. That doesn't mean having manual testers at every step of the process. That means the conversation around testing and quality needs to happen everywhere. And what I'm finding is the role of the quality advocates, the quality engineers, the quality coaches is definitely about being in those conversations, pushing those conversations of quality in every stage of the cycle. Yes, you've got the automated processes around it, but quality has to be part of the conversation. It has to be thought about from day one. And that's more critical now with the complexities of the world that we're moving into, with AI and more complex systems or even systems being developed by AI. We need to have those quality conversations all the way through the cycle. And I think that's still where companies are missing it. And it takes strong voices to keep pushing it to get anywhere along that journey.
How does one become that strong voice that you've mentioned, right? Because people might I've spoken to people in the past, and they always have this frustration that no one's listening to the QA world, right? And at the end of the day, they're just going, my job is to make sure that we all succeed, but I'm seen as a gatekeeper, and I don't want to be seen as a gatekeeper, and I want to do that. So how do people focus in on trying to become that strong voice, right? What steps? Because you said you're kind of ahead, right? So you focus in on leadership as well. How do you encourage people to become those leaders, those strong voices?
I think I would encourage people to think outside of the context of quality. I think I would look at how can you make what you do relate to the business objectives, relate to the company's priority. If it's a product company, relate it to the objectives of that product. If it's a marketplace or even an airline, make it relate to how many seats we sell on the plane. How can quality relate in that context? Try and build your quality strategy and your quality goals to map to the business objectives of the company, and if you can get people aligned on that, you'll get leadership buy-in to what you want to do. But it's not easy, and you might only have one advocate at that point, and it's about continuing to push and sell. And I definitely recommend learning the ability to sell as well, and being a salesperson for your quality agenda and your quality strategy. I spend most of my time trying to convince people of quality and what we need to do and how we need to do it and where we can make a difference. And if you include us earlier, that we're going to get more value and there'll be less long tail of testing at the end. It's a constant sell, and so you need to have the knowledge of what you're doing and the technical know-how around quality, but you also need to be able to sell what you're doing and talk about it in a way the business leaders and the senior leaders understand, and that means talking outside of the context of testing and automation. It needs to be at a higher, more strategic level, and I think that's where the testing industry falls down a lot of the time.
Yeah.
A lot of the testing conferences, a lot of the testing communities is all about, the businesses don't understand testing, we're constantly being pushed back. We need to face outwards. We're very, very much an echo chamber. And what I've learned over the last few years is we're talking about all these modern techniques and modern processes within the testing world, about how we can use AI to do better testing or automation or X, Y, Z. But as soon as you face outwards and you talk to development managers or you talk to engineering directors and whatever else, all they think of testing is QA at the end.
Yeah.
So we've not sold it outside of our own domain. And that's the gap. We need to sell it to the wider domains of the value that we bring, and collaborating with them to show that it's part of their responsibility and not just ours. And that's the missing piece that I think is the struggle. And I've had that pushback for years in every role I've been. That's been a real battle.
Yeah.
And I've got the scars to prove it along the way as well. And it's about how you try and, you take the bump, but then you work out, how do I avoid that bump next time? How do I shift my focus slightly to avoid that challenge and to progress a little bit further? And it might only be about taking one or two steps at a time, but it's about finding a way to get to the point where it's approved and it's agreed at a higher level, that they align with the way you're wanting to work. And that's when you start to get the big wins.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. The kind of the thing that, as a engineering leader that I've been in my career, the thing I always encourage people to do is grow their sphere of influence, right? And it just takes that first person. Take one person in a dev team if you're a tester and go, hey, if we did this one thing, I promise, it makes your lives easier and my lives easier. Feedback loops are faster. Let's try it. Experiment, right? And so growing a sphere of influence, just as a leader, when I tell people, the more people who know who you are, the easier it is to sell, right? Because then it's just I've got this idea, might be crazy, whatever. And then the other one that I always try encourage people, and it was something you said there, is if you hit those bumps, to me, that's I encourage people to fail. And I've got this kind of thing that I tell people, I don't know where I got it from, it's definitely not mine, but I love to use it, is fail means first attempt in learning, right? And so you fail, you fix it, you move on, right? And that could be your speed bumps where you go, oh, this thing didn't work this time, let's try another person another way, and get it out. And I think I think what you've said really resonates with me, and I think a lot more people need to do that. And it's funny, I was speaking to Vernon Richards yesterday, and he was like, we need more people being salespeople, more testers being salespeople, right? That was his thing. And I was like, wow, okay, this is the second time I've heard it today. I do, this week, I encourage people to do that, right? It's and so I think it's
related to that. Sorry, I think the other thing to come out of that is find out what what stakeholders' perception is of quality and testing within their domain, and learn how to resolve their perception. If they've got particular frustrations with, it's a bottleneck, testing's a bottleneck, it slows us down, they're not doing enough automation, etc., etc. Find out why that's the case, understand their perception, and then find ways to resolve it. And it may be that the QA team or testing team are not aware of that perception of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then it's about, right, you've gained the perceptions from 5 different stakeholders that all say QA is this. What can we do to change their perception? Mm-hmm. And then we work on collaborating, and then we work on how we push it outwards to them to show, look, we're making a difference here. And that, again, building that relationship where you're going to stakeholders to find out what their concerns are and their problems, and then you're finding solutions for them. That builds that trust. Yeah. Then they listen more.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think kind of the frustrations, at least from what I've seen speaking to customers and things like that, because like BrowserStack deals with development teams and testing teams, right? And when I speak to them, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, we're just going to shift left now, and that'll make things better," and it kind of feels like it's an afterthought, or they're chasing shiny rather than fixing the underlying problem. Like, have you seen that, and have you ever tried to encourage people that maybe you're solving the wrong problem?
100%. I think there's a lot of focus on, if we automate more and we do more continuous deployment, then a lot of the quality problems go away. But if you've got a core problem where the testing's not up to the right level, or the skill sets aren't there, automating rubbish means you've got faster rubbish. You need to have that ability to understand exactly what you're testing, how you're testing it, why you're testing it, and then build the right structure and automation and AI and continuous testing around it. Just changing to automation, or just changing to a new shiny tool that's going to have all the gadgets, that's going to wow the stakeholders with its fancy reports. But again, reporting on rubbish is going to look terrible. You need to have the right infrastructure and ethos and team culture behind it to enable that those tools are doing the right thing. It's very easy to jump into the new tool is going to solve all our problems, but ultimately you need to have the culture right.
So how would you go about influencing the culture, right? Like, because you've said like you got to sell it, but like culture is always a bit more than just telling everyone this is the thing we're doing, right? Like, how do you influence the culture?
So in the way I've done it in the past, I've always started with the testing team. I've always started with, what's our culture? How do we work? What are our values? I've always worked collaboratively to build out our principles or our values, and we've collectively built a mantra of 6 or 7 statements that's, sustainable automation and user-centric value, or focused on the user, or testability as a foundation, making sure that we've got our key principles that we work from. We then build our ethos around that. We then all become salespeople to sell into our own individual domains. If we're working in specific teams and we're embedded in development teams, we work with that culture. We ensure that our strategies are all aligned with that, and that we're working day to day, in that model. We then start to bring the wider teams in on it. We share, we show our successes. Hey, some automation we've done's moved the needle from 20% to 70% this week. Let's showcase it. Let's show you what we've done. Get the feedback. Start having those conversations with wider stakeholders. It's a slow burn. It's not going to happen overnight. You're looking at, minimum 6 months to a year to get any real change in a culture. It's a slow process, but it's taking that step by step and not getting knocked back by you're getting pushback or resistance on something. Oh, we don't want testers in that area. We don't need them, etc., etc. Okay, fine. We'll work on the areas where it is needed, and then eventually you'll see the successes elsewhere and go, oh, I want a bit of that, and then you'll start to get involved. It's taking an incremental approach of maybe focus one area at a time, but trying to build it up slowly, and also finding the opportunities to speak at wider organisation events. So maybe a company all hands or an engineering all hands or something where you can have a 10-minute chat on quality that doesn't usually get the attention, or there's not usually a voice to it. Starting to push it outwards in that way in big forums, you'll get people that go, oh, I didn't realise you were doing that. Can I find out more? Can we have a coffee and talk about how you could help us? previous orgs, I've had people like service delivery managers that have gone, you know what, we need to have a conversation. I think you can help us with our reporting metrics and whatever else from a quality perspective. And suddenly you're having conversations with areas of the business that you don't usually have conversations with. And they then buy into what you're trying to do, and you can find a way to build that into the strategy and build that culture. And then you've got advocates that will speak up for you as well in other areas. So it's a slow process. There's lots of bits to it, but it's just finding the way to share your voice outwards and then building the culture, as in the way we work, how we behave, how we talk. All of it needs to come into a collective of this is our direction, this is what we're trying to move towards.
Yeah. And I think the operative word that you said there is that it's a slow burn, right? Like it's slow. And it's, at least in my experience, is that it's slow because people firstly don't see value in it straight away, and they resist the change, and then it's kind of growing that sphere of influence, slowly chipping away, kind of saying, hey, like we're trying to get to the same goal, and it is. If you're expecting a change within 6 months, I think you're on for a hiding. To be brutally honest,
Totally agree.
And so, I think one of the kind of a lot of what you've said here is that it's always down to the human element of where people are, right? And I do think, especially in technology, a lot of people focus in on the tech side of things and not necessarily the humanities side of things, right? And at the end of the day, tech can only get you so far. Right, it's how you design it, how you and I mean it from designing your product, but also designing your processes, designing your culture, right? Like everything needs to be deliberate, right? And if you're not being deliberate, I think it can cause problems long term within the company, and you hit these, like you say, speed bumps earlier. You're constantly hitting that, Where do you feel the vital human elements are required in kind of quality? And so this could be automation, it could be kind of exploratory testing, it could be like anything of those things. Like, where's the human element needed first, and then how do you move from a human element into the tech space?
Yeah, I think the human element, it's key that it starts at the beginning with the discussions, the design, the how do we even deliver this? What are we delivering? And it's making sure that the human element of the conversation, the asking of the questions, the why are we doing this? Have we thought about this type of user? Are we making it accessible? How are we going to monitor this in production? All these kind of questions that come from a quality mindset needs to be brought out at the beginning. And that's the first key point from a quality perspective. It doesn't start with the testing. It starts with how do we bake quality into this? How do we make sure that everyone's aware of what quality needs to look like in the end, or what good quality looks like at the end? And we build out our system design, it's testable, its requirements have clear acceptance criteria that are testable. We're looking at our automation early on as to what we need to build, how we need to develop the code to be able to plug our automation in. It all comes under that. How do we build quality in and make our systems able to validate it before it goes live, or after it's live, we can find things quickly and resolve it. It's all part of that continuous quality mindset. So I think the conversations are key. I think you mentioned exploratory testing. There has to be exploratory testing in a process. Manual testing is still needed in some areas, particularly for the more complex scenarios. But exploratory testing is a massive superpower when it comes to testing. Having that ability to go into a system with your focus on a certain area and find things in a way that you wouldn't find through a scripted test is absolutely crucial. And that needs to be done as early as possible in the process, because too often what happens is that exploratory testing session is left until the day before release, And then you get 5 or 6 people all doing exploratory testing, and they do it on the last day. Oh, I found this bug, this bug, this bug, and then we're gonna have to delay the release. Now we've found 3 high priority issues. It's just we need to find a way to embed that into key points of the process, and it doesn't have to be the testers that do it. So again, it's building that human mindset, the quality mindset, testing mindset into the teams, and that anyone who is able to do it can take part in those exploratory testing sessions.
Yeah.
But it's then also looking at identifying the right tools and the right automation and the right testing capabilities that can support the human element, and not just picking the latest, greatest thing off the shelf because it's the new shiny thing that's been sold well in the emails or the marketing campaigns, but working out what tools work for us in our context, with our restrictions, with our scenarios, and building a framework, building a strategy and an ethos around the tools that we need. Or we go down the route of, well, there's no tools that fit what we need, we're going to have to develop our own. Fine, let's develop our own then, let's build the thing out. It still needs that human mindset to overthink that and to bring it all together. So while the roles might be changing away from specific QA engineers, manual testers, etc., having those quality mindsets, whether they're coaches, whether they're QE architects, whether they're leads that have that ability to challenge and probe the team with the human element, it's still needed. And quality is only going to continue to be a big point if we've got those people making those conversations.
Yeah, definitely. And I think kind of, just to rephrase some of the things, I think kind of the user empathy should be there in the entire ecosystem of the development and QA and all of that, because like you then easily find usability problems, which I think is important. You'll find accessibility problems very quickly as well, because just diversity of thought. Suddenly people go, oh, should I do this? And I was speaking to Rachel Kibler, I think on Monday, and she was like, oh, one of my favorite things that I like to do is like, how would I test this if it was 2:00 in the morning and I desperately needed to do this thing, right? And I've got a sick child that I've been kind of looking after through the night, but now I'm working and I have to use this product. Like, how would I go about testing that? And I think those user empathy items become really important, and it's that human side of it again, right? Like, you can't script some of that stuff. Well, you could try, and like after a lot of things, but it's you'll miss a number of things with automation 100%. In that space.
The personas is a key point, and I think it's something we do lose in our testing process. The difference between a tech savvy teenager using an app compared to a more elderly person that the internet and the computers have not been part of their life. They've only been starting to use it in the last year or so, and they're almost afraid of it. Will present 2 very different modes. You'll get the anxiety of someone that there's a timer. You've only got 6 minutes to complete your transaction. There's that panic that sets in with someone who may be slower using it, whereas someone who's more confident, more tech savvy, they've finished it within 30 seconds and it's not a problem.
Yeah,
that presents very different behaviours in the way the system will work and the way they react to the system, and the behaviours that come from the system on the back of that is really crucial to ensure we validate it. And it's something that there's so many different personas, we're never going to be able to test everything, and that's the key point. We have to take a risk-based approach, but we have to make people aware of those risks and what we're doing and how we're not testing this or how we are doing this. And I think the drive towards let's just automate everything, we're losing a lot of those conversation points.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just trying to do everything we can to automate it. But as is being seen in the industry, where we fully automated things, the quality is diminishing, and we're seeing more issues and we're seeing more products crashing and et cetera, and it's just about how we get that balance back.
In your experience, how do you kind of foster the best collaboration between the testing efforts and human side of it? Like, I know from speaking to Marit, she will say automation and exploratory testing is part of the same circle, right? You kind of one feeds into the other back in, and the more automation you have, the more time you have for exploratory testing to give you more automation, but it can never be a line. It has to be a circle. Is her point. Like, so how do you help teams foster better collaboration here?
So I think to start with, the biggest challenge that a lot of teams focus on is the automation replacing manual testing, or we need to do more automation and less manual testing. And it's about bringing it all together and saying this is all part of the testing. Automation is a tool that helps us with the testing. And it's, first of all, define what you're going to test. Have those conversations with the wider team, the developers, the engineers, the PM. Whoever's involved needs to understand why and how we're going to test the system. Then you work out from that point on how we can automate it. Which parts can we automate? Which parts do we need to do exploratory? Do we need to do some other forms of testing as well? How do we structure that? But too often, people dive straight into the automation before they've even thought about how they're going to test it. And that's the bit that needs to change. That's the bit where I still believe, while we don't need the 50-page test strategy documents anymore, and we need to be more agile in the documentation we create, you have to build enough documentation out that people know what's coming and what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and which techniques we're going to use here and there and what we're not testing. Whether it's a mind map or a collaboration session to build that out first, and then you identify as a subset of that how we automate or use AI to generate this or what have you. But it's important to have those human conversations first about this is what we need to do, these are the risks we're going to mitigate, this is how we're going to build this out. Then you work out what comes next.
Yeah. No, 100% agree with that, and I think it's a hard one as well, right? Because like we all have pressures to deliver everything yesterday. It's always yesterday, right? And so that's where they go, oh, if I do automation, and then they get to the point of, I don't have time for automation, but I'm just going to do these like quick manual smoke tests, right? And that's all I can do. And I think kind of that leads to that point you said, where like the quality of products nowadays is actually decreasing compared to a few years ago, because like people understood that you needed both, right? And then it's like, well, we need to cut costs, so we'll just cut this cost because we can't prove that they're actually doing anything. But it's one of those ones, survivorship bias really kicks in, I think, where it's like, actually, now that they're all gone and we're not surviving, maybe we did need them, which I think is really frustrating, especially for QA folks and like quality people in general, because like they knew their value, but it's very hard to prove. And so how can we help junior mid-level engineers be better?
I think there's two elements to the talent development. There's the within team growth, and then I think there's the external stakeholder face sell area of growth as well. I think for the team development and growth, it's finding out what their passions are. Pushing someone down an automation route when really they're not automation minded is going to stifle them more than progress them. So find out what it is within their role that they really enjoy doing. If they're really excited about exploratory testing or non-functional testing or accessibility testing, then find a way to enable them to progress towards their stuff that they get excited about. And then it's about, and I did this with one of my previous teams where I sat down with everybody, worked out what their passions were, and then using the Ministry of Testing, because I bought the pro team license for my team at that point, finding courses and talks and blogs to read, all related to those topics, and built out a little spreadsheet for them of 10 items for them to go away and read, watch, complete, and then document what they'd learned from each one and bring it back into how are they going to apply some of these learnings to their day-to-day work. And actually it really helped with some of the risk side of things. There were some really good talks on risk, really good talks on certain types of automation, certain types of things like exploratory testing. People came back empowered that other people were thinking this stuff and they could learn from that and they could go away and do their own thing. That did two things for me. It enabled them to learn their skills, and it also got a couple of people excited about speaking at conferences and doing that public side of things, which then enabled us to, when we do our internal community of practices, get them to step up on the internal stage and go, here's my learnings on exploratory testing, this is what I want to do going forward, and you get people engaged that way. So within the team, that was one thing. Then the community of practice helps because that was open to the whole company. Mm-hmm. So people come along from different areas to see what testing and quality people are talking about, and we'd have external speakers come in and talk about different topics. And that opened doors as well for people to grow, because that enabled them to find out what other teams were doing, and they could then talk to them and build that way. But then it's the stakeholder side, and a lot of teams, I find they're quite isolated within their little product squads. They talk to the other engineers within the team, but they don't talk outside of the bubble apart from the product manager, who's effectively part of the team. It's finding ways to get them facing outwards and turning their focus not to be completely inwards, but actually to be partially outwards as well, sharing stuff, talking to people outside of their sphere of influence, as you mentioned earlier, but actually building that sphere wider by talking to people wider. That isn't easy for introverts or for people that don't like talking outwards, so it's how you embrace that, encourage that, and work with them. And that's where the coaching side comes in as well. And I'm an active, believer that coaching is for everybody. Everybody can be coached in a way that helps them grow. Yeah. And that certainly builds into my leadership style, as well as how I work with my teams, is to encourage and coach and guide them in the ways that they move forward. So long-winded answer, but I think there's the internal development through testing stuff, but then there's also working with them to embrace the wider organisation. And if the organisation allows it, find time to have a coffee with the CEO or the CTO and stuff, and just learn from them how they've got to their journey, and how what steps they've made across the way, and where have they come across testing and quality. And any level should be able to have those kind of conversations with senior people in some organisations. So it's good to get that ability to talk to people.
Yeah, no, I this really resonated with me, and I think kind of the other side, the thing that I encourage people to do is write down everything that you've learned and when you learn it, right? And I think, I actively encourage people to blog regularly. I don't blog as much as I would like to nowadays, but a blog is not about how many people are reading your story. It's just it's your history that you're writing down, that you've learned this, you want to share this knowledge, and the more you do that, and that goes to your point, right? Like it's that like internal learnings, right? Like, and you can go to people, this is what I've learned, right? And if you share it with the rest of the team, even if it's just internally, like an internal blog or just like a wiki page where you go, this is what I did this week. It's amazing how much you can learn from each other, because you're like, oh, I never thought about X or Y, all right? Or like, oh, this is a new tool. This sounds really exciting. Let me go have a look at it too, right? And the more we share our knowledge, as kind of going back to Rachel, when I was talking to her, like she calls it learning in public, right?
Yeah.
And the more we do learning in public, it's amazing how much more as a team we can share that information. You'll be, well, not you, because I think I'm talking to the converted here, but like development teams will be surprised when they like, oh wow, I never realized QA teams did that, or they thought about that, or they learned that, right? Like, and it goes to those things, and to your point earlier, right? Like you being the salesperson, right? It's a form of sales without actually, or form of marketing without actually ever looking like marketing. It's just like, this is for me.
Yeah. And I think some examples there that have really resonated with me in the past is, you talk about the sort of writing the internal blogs, but going one level up from that, having the team newsletter that you will send out on a Friday or every fortnight or something like that. And the team are going, oh, well, I'm not sure anyone's reading it, etc., etc. And you think, oh, well, we'll can it then. You canned it, and the first person you get an email from on the Monday morning is the CTO going, oh, where's your newsletter gone? I was reading that on a Friday afternoon. You suddenly think, well, people were reading it then. Yeah. And it's just little things like that it's not about who's reading it. Sometimes it is just about putting something out there on the off chance that somebody will pick it up and realise something from reading it, or And we used to do this, as I mentioned, the community of practice before. We evolved it into what we called the test party.
Yeah.
And this test party was we invited everybody along across the company, and we just exploratory tested an area of the system. And we had the CTO and the directors of engineering come along at one point, and they said exactly what you said afterwards. I didn't realise the QE team did so much. And it's just those little wins that's like, well, there you go. That shows value. It might take a while to actually ripple through, but just that first realization that there's more to what we do than just running a few scripts in a system and marking it as passed.
Yeah.
We can explore the system, find the information out, and a lot of times we're the glue in the wider team, because we're the ones that are pulling all the bits together and reporting back on all the findings. So yeah, it's about how we show our values in every way possible.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, I think I'm hoping people can learn a lot from that and take away and actually have actionable items from some of the things you've said today. So we are going to head into our quickfire round. So this is I'm going to ask you a question. I'm just after kind of a single sentence. If you give me like a one-word answer and I go, what? I might ask you to expand it, but the idea is really that kind of, I want to see how you think on your feet with some of my favorite questions.
Excellent.
Right. Favorite testing tool you've used recently?
Postman.
Awesome. Book every software development team lead should read in 2025.
Holistic Testing by Lisa Crispin and Janet Gregory.
Those two are amazingly smart people.
They are.
And really nice as well. An underhyped QA metric.
Well, I'm building my own called Quality Achieved, which may be an underhyped one at this point because it's only me that uses it. But I guess that would be my answer.
Oh, can you expand on that one? Well, like what? How do you?
So I've had successes with it in previous roles, and I keep evolving it as I move around companies. But it takes the test for each. You basically build your system into a risk-based map of where are the high risk areas, where do we weight our testing as a higher priority than other areas. You build out a matrix of all the areas together, and then as you're marking your areas as complete or 50% testing has been executed, you have criteria that's set of, have we had any P1 issues in this area? And if it's a yes, you found P1 issues, then that reduces that percentage that goes towards the quality down to 0. So it's weighted, but you lose the whole weighting if there's high priority issues. And what it does is the overall picture, you bring it together. And I had this in previous projects where the project team were like, we just need to release. I know there's defects, but we just need to release it. And I was able to present that actually through this quality achieved metric, the system was at 30% quality. And they were like, oh, okay, well, can we fix some of the major issues? And because the defects were all in the high weighted areas.
Mm-hmm.
So we then fixed a few issues and we got it up to 86%, and everyone was comfortable that we could release at that point, and that resolved some of the concerns. So I'm starting to try and build it out for my new context now and see where we use it. But it's just a risk-based weighted metric that takes the test pass rates but also weights the areas based on risk. And therefore you prioritize the higher risk areas with your testing, and that means the lower percentage ones probably don't get as much coverage, but it gives an overall percentage of how much quality we've achieved through our testing. Quite a convoluted one, but it works. It gives a value that people are comfortable with, rather than just going with pass rates or test coverage rates. It gives us a tangible number that we can hold up as we're confident in our testing, therefore the quality of the system is this.
Awesome. If you weren't in software development or testing, what career would you pursue?
Well, I always wanted to go into the military and go into intelligence before I went to university. So I would probably would have tried to pursue that. Maybe now I'd probably go into teaching IT.
Okay. Amazing. Book, podcast, or person that's influenced you the most recently in your professional life?
So from a leadership side, I made friends about 2 years ago with a leadership coach called Tim Roberts, who's written a book called Break the Mold, and he's written a second one as well about the BS factory. He's been really influential. His main mantra is it all starts with you, and it's really that looking inwards, and then how you react to stuff, how you behave, how you respond to people. That sets your tone on the leadership journey, and that's really helped me with my leadership style. So I would say Tim.
Amazing. That's it for the quickfire round. Thank you so much, Simon. This has been incredibly insightful. Your perspectives on everything, I think, have been indispensable, and it's invaluable. I'm hoping that a lot of people can take something away and do with it. To our listeners, if you want a deeper dive into the world of software testing, make sure you subscribe to the BrowserStack Talks, and so you can learn more. And Simon, any final parting thoughts, and please tell us where people can find you more.
I think my parting thought would really be, don't be afraid to speak out about quality, and find every opportunity you can to talk about it, in a way that obviously, don't be the annoying person that always talks about quality and only quality. I've been there, and that's not fun. But try and do it in a way that's, you're raising the bar, you're raising the awareness. As far as reaching out to me, social media's sort of become a bit of a minefield. I think LinkedIn's probably the best place to find me. So either search for my name. I think my handle on there is lead test include, after the linkedin.com/in. So that's probably the best way. I have a blog site as well, leadtestinclude.com. You can always contact me via that as well. So that would be the best way.
Amazing. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and hopefully see you in the next episode.